do it.
Okay.
On behalf of the community.
Sure. Are you around tomorrow? Okay. I'll give you a
I'm
shout.
around all week.
Yeah, me too. I've got a nice morning ready for you guys, so I'm just gonna go for it from home. So I'll try to give you a call as the day kicks in early on. Okay, thanks. Call to order. Grand Forks, welcome everybody. Grand Forks City Council meeting Monday, December 21st, 2020. 1.2. Let's do a roll call first. Maureen, please.
Weigel.
Here.
Dockler. Here. Weber.
Here.
Mock. Here. Kavami. Gotcha. Sandy.
Here.
And Veen.
Here.
All right, we have a quorum.
Thank you. 1.2, pledge allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, 1.3, Mayor's announcements. I have a few announcements today. Yesterday culminated Light the Town Green Week, which was great. Community really came out for a parade, good support of essential workers, including healthcare workers, first responders, and other essential workers. Great firework display. I think we had probably at least 100 cars out there, and all dressed up, squad cars, fire trucks. It was quite the event, so I want to thank everyone that participated in that. I think it was Thursday. I got out and got to meet all the Air Force nurses with Colonel Pringle. I don't think they've taken off yet. They're still in town, but we got out there and got to thank them for coming here during the holidays and helping out the hospital. Public Works got its first snow event last night, so the plows are finally getting some good use, a little different than last year. We entertained General Dave Deptula was in town for his first visit as a base retention consultant. He got out to the base and some other strategic partners. Great future strategic thinker, really excited to have him on board. Last week I went out to Shields and rang the bell for the Salvation Army. That was a lot of fun, got to talk to a lot of people. I'm not sure what the record is, I don't think I was close, but I got $260 in 2 hours, so I thought that was great to see the $1, $2 at a time filling that jar up. One sad note, we did have a mutual termination of employment with City Planner Brad Gegler. We mutually decided it was the best to part ways. He was a long-time dedicated employee, 14 years as the city planner, so we certainly hope the best for him going into the future. I think that's all we got for mayor's announcements. Going on to 2, awards, presentations, appointments, and proclamations. 2.1.
2.1, Veterans Memorial Park update.
General Palmer, please.
Mr. Mayor, thanks for the invitation, and President Sandy, it's always good to see you and the other council members. Thanks for the opportunity for an update brief. You know, this is a white hat story. Things are going well. Mark June 17th of 2021 on your calendar. That's our grand opening date. We hope to have good weather, and hopefully the COVID will be over with by then. To date, we've raised just short of $1.3 million in cash for this project. And we need to thank the people of the greater Grand Forks area, the businesses of the greater Grand Forks area, the city of Grand Forks, the park board, the county commission, and you guys for making that happen. We've raised just short of $900,000 of in-kind support for this. So when you total those two numbers up, it's a little over $2 million. Northrop Grumman and General Atomics are going to provide us outside models that we can put on posts. The Global Hawk is a 1/10 scale model like you see out at Northrop Grumman, and the General Atomics is a Reaper with a 12-foot wingspan that has missiles and bombs and things like that on it. So they're going to be at the park. We just have to figure out where we're going to put them. I say that the park is 95% complete. If you go to the park, you're going to see the lights, you're going to see the wall, the obelisk, the shelter, and the sidewalks. And if you walk the Walk of Honor, you'll see 600 and some blocks that have been laid there. We've sold a little over 900. We've got room for 1,300, and if we have to go to 2,000, we got room for that as well. So things are going well. We've got 5 service benches to put up, 15 individual park benches to put into place, and we decided to wait for the spring to that instead of to just having them out for the winter. The visitor center is just about done. We're waiting on flags and some punch ticket items for the building itself. The donor wall is built. We didn't put the plaques on the donor wall yet because we want to see how they last through the winter. So if you go out there, you'll see one attached to a post, and we'll see how it goes through the winter. All the buildings, the wall, the obelisk, we thought about what if somebody takes a can of paint and puts graffiti on them. We bought them so that they can be cleaned easily, and that we've tested those. And it's a shame that we have to do that, but you know, that's the way life is these days. We've got Wi-Fi out there. We'll have a security system. Just about everything is in place. We've sold a little over 900 of those blocks, and Cenis Granite out of East Grand Forks does all the etching for us, and they have to do that in the wintertime. They're slow time. So they'll etch those, and we'll put those in the spring. I'd like to say that we've baked a cake, and now we got enough money to pay for the cake, but we'd like to put some icing and sprinkles on that cake, and we're still doing some fundraising. We're looking for $100,000, and I tell you, the community has been extremely receptive and generous to that, and I'm sure we're going to make that happen. One of the things that Tom, my vice, is here tonight, and I told him if I lie, he's going to swear to it. But we would like to get an airplane out there in some form or fashion, not a full size, but a mock-up. And we were talking about, should it be a B-52, should it be a tanker, should it be a B-1, should it be all three? We're going to take a look at that and there's a website that you can get those made, and we're going to go to Boeing and to others to see if they may want to donate one of those for us, especially a B-52. I think that completes my brief, pending any questions.
Well, first I'd like to say thank you, General Palma, for all your work. I'm really excited to get out there and see the final product. And it is a shame that you have to spend extra money to protect it from graffiti, but I'm glad you did, let's just say.
Well, you and I and Todd and Tom have coffee set up for the 29th so we can have a face-to-face, so maybe we can go out there. We've had the first Veterans Day presentation out there, and that was this year, went well. And we had our first wedding, if you can believe that, the same day. That was really pretty neat. So I think this is going to be a destination point for the city. People will come here for this. And so thanks so much for all of your support and making this happen for us. Greatly appreciated.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments for General Palmer? Oh, Ms. Mock.
And where do people go if they wanted to get in touch with you for your last $100,000 that you're trying to raise?
They can go to our website, or they can call me personally. We've got a 16-member board. Diane Knopf is our secretary, and she's leading the effort for planning our grand opening event. We start doing that in January of next year. So reach out, go to the website. I have to tell you a story real quick. Chris Bowe, he runs the ER here in town. He loves to hunt. he took care of me 2 weeks ago on the 10th of December. I go in and he goes, I want to come out and deer hunt on your land. I'll pay you $1,000 to do that. And I go, no, you won't. I said, give $1,000 donation to the Veterans Memorial Park. You get your name on the wall, you'll get a tax deduction, and you can still come out and kill a deer. So he's coming out in the fall. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Thank you. 2.2.
Grand Forks Public Annual Report and Overview.
Great. I was just going to say real quickly, I'm really excited for the presentation today. I personally love to see the library move further into the 21st century and eventually with a new facility there so we can include more classrooms for computer training, computer literacy, robotics, coding, podcast recording, and just a real general community center. I think we'd all love to see that, and I'm really excited to work with the library board to create that value to the community and move it on in that way. So we'll hand it over here to Ms. Wint and Mr. Barry for their presentation.
Thank you very much, Mayor Buczynski. We appreciate this opportunity to give you and the council members an update. And I have a PowerPoint here, so I will just quick share my screen. There we go. So the Grand Forks Public has gone through a strategic planning process that started the end of 2019 and wrapped up in the beginning of 2020. We began with a SWOT analysis that was led by Sandy Marshall. She worked with the staff to kind of work through some of those concepts. It was followed by a workshop led by Carrie Herrig that led the board and the library management team through a brainstorming session using the World Cafe method. And in that method, they ask 4 big thought-provoking questions, and then we discuss and brainstorm. And the result of that process is the mission, vision, and values that you see in front of you today. So the mission of the library has remained fairly consistent, but this has been tweaked. So connecting the community has always been our priority, connecting people to each other, to information, to entertainment. So now it's been expanded to inspire innovation and encourage curiosity. Curiosity is at the center of being a lifelong learner and an adventurer. The vision of the library is that Grand Forks Public is a playground for curious minds. We help people discover dreams, grow ideas, and change lives. And our values are compassion and connection, inspiration and innovation, and discovery and curiosity. So, although it seems a long time ago, and really a long time ago because of the year we've been through, this slide is our 2019 statistics that we present in our annual report. And council members, you should have received or will receive our 2019 impact report in your mailboxes at City Hall that contains this information and more. What I'd like to point out is that this is 2019, which is a normal year for the library. It's important to note down on the bottom that 1 in 3 Grand Forks County residents has a Grand Forks Public Library card. I'd also like to point out that we had nearly 200,000 in-person library visits in 2019, which averages out to 550 people per day, as we are open 7 days a week, excluding holidays. Nearly 20,000 people attended our in-person events. for approximately 56 people per day, every day of the year. And people checked out nearly 450,000 items from the library, which is over 6 items for every man, woman, and child in the county.
All right, I'm going to talk about a couple of slides here too. I'd also like just to thank the mayor and city council for having both Wendy and myself here. And I need to point out that Wendy is very excited because today is her birthday. And this was her birthday wish, was to present at a council meeting tonight. So
It was.
Going over a few things that the library has been up to. Probably the biggest thing over the last couple of years has been the renovation project. And we have another slide coming up about some of the costs and the breakdown of the renovation project. It was pretty substantial. The board a few years ago really started focusing on the current facility. The current facility has been in limbo for a long time, and there were a lot of things that we just couldn't patch up anymore. A big one is ADA compliance. The library was non-ADA compliant. A couple of years ago, the library, we had the second floor bathroom remodeled to make it ADA compliant. And then part of this large main floor renovation project was gutting out the public bathrooms, making them ADA compliant, and also making the shelves ADA compliant. The stacks for the library previously were too close together. Books were either too low or too high for ADA compliance. The staff actually had to purge about 30,000 books, which were donated to a nonprofit to allow the library staff then to move the shelving further apart to ensure a wheelchair could fit through the space, and also to make sure books were not too high or too low. So we are very proud of that now we can say the library is compliant with the Americans with Disability Act. Some of the other things too, a new carpet. Some of the carpet was original to the library from the early 70s, where some portions could not be shampooed anymore because it would disintegrate during that time. When we moved the shelves and everything, the new carpet was laid down. Another thing that happened too was when, before the carpet was put down, new electrical and data lines were run on the floor, which has been helpful a lot. Prior to the remodel, there was about just a couple dozen electrical outlets scattered throughout the building. And where the furniture was previously was strategically placed to be near outlets. Now there's outlets everywhere for individuals to be able to charge their devices, and there's some furniture that actually has charging outlets on them as well. So the remodel is great. I know the staff is looking forward to more and more of the public being able to experience it. We're going to be talking a little bit next slide too about the phased reopening plan of the library. One thing that they've been doing a lot of staff has been the curbside pickup. The days that they've been doing this, they've been having over 100 vehicles a day come through the library parking lot. The staff too has just done a tremendous job with new programming during COVID this year. They have put together all sorts of very innovative and popular virtual programming. Even the summer reading program for children, which usually has such a huge turnout, that was virtual this year as well. Another thing too is library visits by appointment now have resumed. Those were going on previously for a while this fall, and then they were not going on, but now they're back on. And I think I have a slide next year about the some of the phased reopening for you too. So back in the early summer, Wendy got a lot of input from public health, and also just from her professional associations of librarians, and also other librarians in the state to come up with a phased reopening plan. And that was discussed and revised slightly during some board meetings, and it's been a living document. We have looked at it again this fall a couple times. Right now, the library is in phase 2 of the reopening, where there is curbside pickup several days a week, and there's some in-library by appointment a couple days a week as well. And those times, Wendy, I don't want to say this incorrectly, there's going to be some additional by appointment times as well starting soon, right? Mm-hmm. Perfect. And so far, those have been very popular.
Okay, so now this graphic is the activity of the library during the closure due to COVID. So it's basically April through November and what was used then. Now, this isn't the full year numbers, but this is just to give you a picture of what was happening while we were, while the doors were not open. So what I think was the most fascinating to me is the number of programs and attendance increased by 4 times. The Facebook video views, that's how we distributed our library programs. Library staff recorded videos, they posted them through Facebook, they linked, and then we also had them on YouTube, and then they were linked from our webpage. So our numbers from in-person at 20,000 in 2019 increased to over 84,000 in just those 8 months or so. So what this tells me is people love the library, and I know they're anxious to come back, but it shows me that as we move forward, we'll want to retain the best of what we've learned through this experience and bring it forward as we bring the best of library services previously and create a new normal going forward. So we've focused a lot on e-resources, and usage of e-resources went up. Just one shy of 700 new library cards were issued during that April through November time period. And many more items have been loaned via curbside. This was some initial numbers, but it's dramatically gone up. Website visits are up, and the other thing that's been continuously popular is the Wi-Fi that's available in the library parking lot, outside the library 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So we have been very busy, both virtually and in person. Here's a little video.
Hello, this is Brandy from the Grand Forks Public Library. And now we'll get into the phone card, this looks sick.
All right, this is a little bit of a breakdown too, showing for the main floor renovation project where the money was spent. I'm going to mention too, we've had a lot of questions from members of the public. If we utilize some of the Joe Neal Jr. donation for the project, and none of that has been used, that's still just sitting in an account drawing interest. We were able to do the entire renovation just utilizing the library budget. Wendy did a great job with working on the budget over the past several years to allow the library to have a little bit of cash carryover in several years in a row to allow us to do the entire renovation from within the library budget. The main floor model was approximately $560,000, but when the board really started focusing a few years ago on the current facility. There were some other items such as a new roof, new boiler burners, LED lighting, some other more infrastructure type items, which brings that up to right approximately $1 million that has been spent on the current facility over the past probably about 3 years. Last for path forward, just some things that the library is kind of focused on as part of the strategic plan is the staff just wants to continue delivering just excellent service. I like to call them the award-winning staff because I think almost every person in the building has won either a state or national award for professional librarians. And again, the staff's just doing a great job with programming over the last few years. They've been thinking of some really great progressive, bold programming for the public. With that too, there's been a focus on not only having library activities in the building, but doing more things out in the community, which has been great to see too. Innovation too, the library wants to serve as a technology innovator and idea lab. One thing with that too is one portion of the library which hasn't been renovated, the old computer lab on the main floor, half of that is going to continue to be a computer lab. Then the other half, the staff would like to have some type of maker space in there where there can be some more technology for members of the public to utilize. So that's what we're hoping is kind of the next project within the facility to work on that, and as well as just some updates to the children's department, as that was not a focus of the main floor remodeling project. And with that, again, I just want to thank the mayor and council for having us here. And does anyone have any questions for Wendy or myself?
Thank you, Ms. Wint and Mr. Barry. Really appreciate it. Any questions from council for them? All right, thank you for your time. Get back to enjoying your birthday evening, please, Ms. Wint.
Thank you.
All right, 2.3.
2020 Food Box Initiative.
All right, I'll talk a little bit, then I'll have Meredith join as well. This is in partnership with the Red River Valley Community Action Group and through the NAIC identified some areas of need, food-based needs, especially during this COVID time for families that either can't work or are quarantined or isolated or their kids are at home from school, and it's a group that maybe has been missed out a little bit on other food source types of areas. So I'd also like to thank Mr. Weber with his work on this. We also have Abdirazak Dwali is also here to answer any questions, but I think basically we're looking for some consensus from council. We've got some funds available that we'd want to use before the end of the year, and if council doesn't have any objections, I think we'd move forward administratively, but I'll let Meredith talk a little bit more about that. Ms. Richards.
Thank you, Mayor. As you may recall, we initiated last year the Community Services Grant Program, previously kind of known as Human Needs. Approximately $127,000 was set aside in Fund 2163 for this program, kind of similar to our other re-grant programs in that fund. As we all know, 2020 didn't work out quite as we expected, and when we got some generous funding from HUD for COVID relief, we decided to leave that money, local funding, sitting there in case we needed it, and it was basically supplanted with CDBG funding for this year. Right now, we're in the middle of the allocation process for 2021 for regular CDBG, the last chunk of COVID relief CDBG money, and the 2021 use of this funding. So we've got 2021 funding in process. 2020 funding isn't spoken for, but this, as Mayor Baczynski mentioned, this is kind of why I think that money was left to be available for special needs like this. If you recall, this was a recommendation from Sandy Marshall to help supplement the operating funding available through CDBG funding. And so it is strictly local funds, but it's meant to help low to moderate income people and the agencies who support them. So the use that's proposed certainly makes sense. Kind of doing this on a pilot basis. If it works out well, certainly encourage this group to, get into the regular process through our normal allocation process, but, kind of due to the emergency nature, as the mayor pointed out, timing really doesn't work for that. So certainly happy to answer any other questions.
And then what was the amount and for how many months? Do you have those numbers?
What we're looking at is this kind of pilot program is up to $27,000, which is estimated to feed up to 150 households for 3 months.
Any questions or comments from anybody in council? Otherwise, we'll take advisement from anybody. Mr. Weber, you have anything you'd like to add?
Thanks for your leadership on this, Mayor. Yeah.
All right, well, thank you.
2.4, COVID update, beginning with economic review.
All right, I'm just going to have a couple comments, and we'll let Todd hand it over. I think we're going to do the economic review last. We were going to start, I think, if Megan Compton was on from Altru, but I think we've obviously seen some promising news. Even yesterday's cases that were announced today, down to 4 cases of positivity, far below 5% at 3.2. Hospitalizations are still lagging a bit, and I'm sure Megan can speak much more eloquently to that than I can, but we're hoping to see those continue lower. So a lot of good news. The vaccine administration is in progress. And I know Public Health has done a great job, and along with Altru and our long-term care facilities at administering citywide. So with that, Mr. Phelan, why don't you choreograph it from here?
I will. Thank you, Mayor Buchenski, members of City Council. I want to give a quick update. Under the Phase 1 CARES funding, this City Council approved $180,000 to go to the Alaris Center to upgrade their ventilation systems and with some ionizations. I wanted to report that that project has been complete with Johnson Controls, so as of a couple of weeks ago that's up and going. Further, I know Mr. Weber really was the lead on this. We are also looking at our other city buildings, and we're focusing on City Hall, all the fire stations, the police department, and Public Works. So we're in the midst of a study right now, and we'll come back with some recommendations further on those buildings. Then, as Mayor, you said, I think let's go to Altru Health System with an update later in the agenda. Thank you to our Public Health Director, Debbie Swanson. We've been working with Altru on ways that we could help reimburse some of the call center costs and some of the testing costs. As you know, we've allocated money to go to the Alaris Center to host some of the testing, but I'll kind of brief what we've been able to do. We've been able to come up with $1 million. Most of that's going to go to Altru for the call center and testing, so I think that's a big win for the community. So I want to say thank you to Altru to do it, and thank you for Debbie and our whole team working together to look for find funding to reimburse that. We'll talk a little bit about that later in the agenda, but with that, Megan, please go ahead.
Thank you, Todd. I am just going to share my screen here. Okay, I just have a brief presentation. Megan Compton, Chief Clinic Operations Officer, and good evening to the mayor and to the council members. And I had planned to save my thank yous to the end, but since Todd brought that topic up, I just might start there. So I just want to say we really appreciate the partnership, as I've talked about before, with the city and with Public Health and many others. And Todd had shared that there was going to be an allocation of dollars put towards the hotline and the curbside efforts. So a giant thank you to all of you for that support, and we will continue to support the community in the same way. So I have a relatively brief update for tonight. Just a couple quick things. One is on testing, spend a little bit of time on the hotline, and then some information on vaccinations. So as we've been watching our testing come down, we think that's good news. As you can see, at our peak, we were testing over 2,500 patients at our curbside location each week. Last week, we had 658 curbside tests completed. The one other thing, or sort of new thing that I would like to just mention, is that now we have received an allocation of a certain kind of test that can test for both influenza and COVID. Previously, we were not in influenza season, but are coming into that now. And so it's an important way for us to evaluate whether someone is experiencing influenza or COVID, because the symptoms are very similar. So that's being done at our curbside location today. When we don't have information as to whether or not we'll continue to receive an allotment or an allocation of that dual test going forward, but we'll continue to use it until we're not able to through the flu season. This is a more rapid test, so it's a same day result. So there's benefit to that as well. And then to correlate to those numbers, we're also seeing a pretty significant decrease in the number of hotline calls. So again, at our peak, we were seeing over 7,000 calls per week. Last week, we had around 895. The week prior to that was just around 1,300, a little bit above that. So depending on how you look at it, we could think that's good news or bad news. We like to think that it is good news. The calls that come to us and those that come in to be tested are symptomatic patients or those that have been in close contact. It's not surveillance testing. And so as a result of that, the majority of people that are calling us are also calling because they're symptomatic or have been in close contact with a positive. So as a whole, I think testing has come down within the community, and I know Mr. Dulitz and Ms. Swanson probably will share a little bit more about their perspective as it relates to the whole. But on our end, as we see those numbers come down, that's hopefully a positive thing. We are hanging in there at 17, 18 positives in terms of inpatients. So the number of inpatient COVID positive patients is still hanging around 17 or 18 each day. That's, again, significantly below where it had been at our peak a number of weeks ago, which was more like 45 or 46. But again, prior to October, those numbers were below 10. So we're hoping to see a continual decrease and in the next few weeks get closer to that number. So the other hot topic for us is vaccinations. We have received our first allotment through the state, and that allotment was the Pfizer vaccination. We have now vaccinated with our first vaccination 535 vaccines, or 535 employees. So I don't want to bore you with the details, but we'll share, just because we've had a fair amount of questions about it, that the vaccine is a vaccine that has to be given twice. So that Pfizer vaccine, once it's given to an employee, the second dose also has to be a Pfizer vaccine, and same with the Moderna. So the next 1,000 vaccines that we will receive tomorrow, or we're expected to receive tomorrow, will be the Moderna vaccines. And then once those 1,000 employees have been vaccinated with that first dose, we will, in the appropriate amount of time, vaccinate them again for the second dose with the Moderna vaccine. So we've received a few questions about that and wanted to clarify it. The one interesting thing, or a bit of a change on our end, and Debbie may speak to it as well, the number of expected vaccine doses coming to us has changed. So the federal government, who is providing those doses to each of the individual states, has decreased the weekly allotment pretty significantly, and then has changed the expectation as to who shares that allotment. So we will get through the first 1,500 employees, and then we'll be watching pretty closely to see what sort of allotment comes to us in the next coming weeks. And the other thing I wanted to mention or point is just the number of employees excluded because of COVID. So at our peak, we were seeing 200 plus. We are down to 29 individuals excluded because of COVID-related reasons, which is great news for us. In the meantime, as the mayor had mentioned, we've been able to, we've been on the receiving end of the DOD nurses. They have done an incredible job for us. They have a few more days left to go, and then they will be heading out on the 23rd. So I also expect, and it may be on your minds, it's certainly on ours, that as we see them depart We will also be looking at the nurses that we've deployed from other areas of the system, so the outpatient arena. We'll work on getting them back to their home base or to the locations that they were starting from. And as long as we don't see a spike post-holiday, we anticipate that we will too be able to come off of that tier 2 and head in the right direction. So I will pause there to see if there's any questions. Otherwise, that's all that I have, other than just, again, a giant thank you to all of you for the partnership, for the allocation of dollars. We had a lot of appreciative staff last night for the Parade of Lights as well. And as the mayor mentioned, he and Colonel Pringle came to Altra on Friday to show their support for the DoD nurses. So all around, we've got a lot of thankful people.
Thank you, Ms. Compton. Any questions for Megan? All right, thank you once again.
Mayor, we'll go into the dashboard discussion. I wanted, we attached 3 graphs on the wastewater, and thanks to Melanie Parvey and her staff, they take the samples, and then the samples get analyzed down at North Dakota State University. The one note that we did receive from the gentleman that's running the tests and some of the analytics down at NDSU, that he noticed that we did get a little bit of an uptick after Thanksgiving, is what those graphs show to him. He said in other areas of the state that uptick was greater than what he saw in Grand Forks, so he didn't think it was it's significant, but it's on, out of what he's seen in other communities. So I think that's positive for Grand Forks, but something we'll have to keep our eye on as we move forward. So with that, I'd ask Mr. Dulitz if you wouldn't mind sharing some of your dashboards.
Mayor Bochensky and members of the council, I'm Michael Dulitz. I'm with Grand Forks Public Health. I'm going to give you a quick update on where we're at with the dashboard and other relevant metrics. I come to you with good news today. I'm always happy to have an opportunity to share when we're pointing in the right direction. Our dashboard looks a lot different than it has previously. There's a lot of green, there's a lot of yellow, and we are very much pointing towards yellow on the dashboard itself. So if we look at what will get us down into the yellow, getting our cases below 25 cases per 100,000 will get us down into the orange for the case score, which will move the overall score down into yellow. If we get our percent positivity below, or if we get a percent positivity below 3%, that would also move us down into the yellow. And then the other possibility immediately would be, if we saw a decrease in the number of inpatients or hospital capacity increase, we could see that that hospital capacity measurement move down into the green, and that would put us into the yellow overall. We're still in the yellow, we're still in the orange because we do weigh new cases being quite high. I just wanted to reiterate that, when we looked at what happened between the outbreak that we had in August and the outbreak that we had in October, November, we didn't get back down below 25 cases per 100,000, and that probably contributed to an abundance of cases available for spread to happen in the community, and we kind of saw the downstream effects of having a repository of cases left in the community. Looking at cases by age group, surprisingly, the 20 to 29 and 10 to 19 age groups, or 0 to 19 age groups have kind of been the ones that have been dropping the most lately, and those are actually down into the orange category. The 60 plus and the 30 to 59 age groups have been the ones that have been kind of driving the current case counts. When we look at the 60 plus age group, I'd previously kind of broken that out. Now those cases are all kind of following what's happening in the community. So again, the numbers the trends are all kind of similar across the board when we look at these, but we are seeing decreases in some of those younger demographics. Looking at the incidence curve, so this is looking at the number of cases that we've had overall in Grand Forks County since the first day we had COVID, or the first COVID case on 3/29. So this is a really interesting way of looking at kind of the slope of that line. That line has gone, the slope of that line has gone way down. Previously we had added over 4,000 cases to that incidence line in 35 days. Now we've had only 516 cases in 19 days. So we are pointed very much in the right direction. Taking a look at this in a different manner, I had previously discussed, looking at doubling time on multiple occasions, and so I've been able to go back and look at the doubling times from a few of the different times that I've came and spoken to council, just to see, kind of the progression. So this is the overall incidence line. This was from 10/21. This is the the projection that we made based off of the prior 2 weeks of COVID cases. So that's where we could have been. This is 10/28. The slope is even higher on that line. This is 11/1. And now looking recently, 11/30, 12/7, 12/14, and then what I have as the ideal projection would be below 25 cases per 100,000 or 17 cases per day in Grand Forks County, and we are almost right on that line, within a percentage point of being on that line. Fortunately, I can say, when we look at the percent difference with some of the projections that I made earlier, those are now well over 100%. So I'm glad to say that I was 100% wrong in making those projections, because we made, because differences or changes happen in the course of COVID in the community. Again, looking at this on a little bit more amplified basis, again, we are following, we're just very, very close to getting below that 17 cases per day, or that 25 cases per 100,000. Our doubling time, so that's looking at the number of the number of days it would take for our incidence number to double. So right now we're at about 9,000, so for it to double to just below 20,000. So that's looking at just below 250 days right now. If we want to kind of keep this trajectory up, we have to keep the number up, because the number is obviously much higher than it was when we look. The total number is much higher than it was when we look back to May, June, for instance. But again, a good way to show our positive trend. Looking at deaths in the community, unfortunately, we have had 61 total deaths in Grand Forks County related to COVID since May. Fortunately, the deaths have kind of plateaued over the past few days. Another positive step. And if we apply that same doubling time methodology, we're looking at about 69 days for that number to double. So to go from 61 to 122. So that number is increasing, which is showing us a positive trend. One thing I did want to touch on was looking at testing numbers. So Grand Forks, as I had previously discussed multiple times, one of the biggest successes we've had as a community is our testing regime. We've done an excellent job with testing. We've had good community uptake. We have seen a decrease in the total number of tests, that we haven't seen for quite a while, but we are still higher than many of our peer communities. A couple of factors that may be, contributing to this. We've seen an increase in antigen testing. So antigen testing is testing where it's like the rapid type testing where you get results in 15 minutes. Because of the way antigen testing is kind of rolled out, the reporting of negative testing is really difficult to get. And so the state has opted for their percent positivity calculations and their test calculations to only include the PCR tests. So like what you'd get when you would go to UND on a Tuesday or Saturday, what you'd get if you went through the all-true drive-through testing. So that number, may have decreased the total testing count by a little bit, because we have people providing antigen testing. But I do think, overall, it's probably a decrease in demand, and maybe to a lesser extent, a lack of interest in, finding out if you're positive right before a holiday, if you're subjected to, or if you have been going in for routine testing, as some people have been. Looking at our hospitalizations, again, our active hospitalizations are very much on a downward trend, and that downward trend, another factor in that may be the state has had a good chance to improve their data quality as case numbers have slowed down as well. So, we're getting, I think, truer numbers right now. So we did fall below 10 active hospitalizations as a rate per 100,000 for Grand Forks. Comparing that to our peer communities, we are in kind of the lowest position right now. Looking more regionally, what we're seeing in North Dakota and in Grand Forks County is reflective of, I think, a larger regional decrease in the number of cases when we look at the states near us, as well as looking at Manitoba. And then finally, I did want to touch on that wastewater, that wastewater graph, that it did show an increase in the number of, or the amount of COVID that they found when they were looking at wastewater. So that is something that should, maybe be considered if a person's looking at their, at their decision calculation for their plans for Christmas, that there may be, COVID cases aren't necessarily being identified quite yet, or it could be a sign of an early, it could be an early indicator, as you can see, comparing it back to October. So looking at our bottom line, our strengths right now, we're almost down into the yellow, which is the change from red to yellow, in such a short time is quite remarkable. And I think we will get down into the yellow this week. It won't happen tomorrow the way it looks, but I'm hoping sometime this week we get down into yellow. With that, we are seeing a good decrease in case growth. Our weaknesses, again, that testing decrease, is something to keep an eye on. It's not something to sound the alarm on or anything like that. Opportunities, the vaccine is being administered in the community. This is a very positive thing. Altry started last week. Grand Forks Public Health will be starting this week, and other partners will be starting in the coming weeks, like in nursing homes and things of that nature. But bear in mind that we do need, if we look at our metropolitan statistical area, which is about 100,000 people, when you look at Grand Forks County and Polk County, we need to get between 50 and 70 to 80% vaccinated for herd immunity by vaccination. So we still do have a long way to go in this fight, but we are making the steps towards I guess we could call victory. We have been able to move our contact tracing team back to following household and close contacts. So we are notifying them, following them, making sure they're getting follow-up testing. We had to depart from that temporarily in November and in early December because of the number of cases we were experiencing. And then finally, that wastewater piece, when we look at threats, that is something obviously that we should be keeping an eye on, and maybe part of our decision calculation, our personal decision calculation for activities with the holiday. And with the Christmas holiday, there is a concern when we look at COVID that we may be, I guess I would say all of us are could get easily lulled into thinking case counts are low. So let's get in our gatherings while the case counts are low. I would still urge a lot of caution when individuals are making plans for the holidays, just because we don't want to lose the progress that we've had at the same time. So I know this has been a very tough time for all of us, including myself. With that, I'm open to any questions, and as always, I did include additional slides attached looking at the measures that I'd previously presented.
As usual, thank you, Mr. Duetz. Any questions for Mr. Duetz?
Yeah, Mayor, I have one quick question.
Yeah, Mr. Veen, please.
Say, Mr. Duetz, when do you think the nursing homes will start their vaccination?
So Councilmember Veen, when I looked at, based off of the calls that we had this morning, it's looking like either next week or early in the first week of January, the nursing homes will be getting their allocation. So they're getting the next batch to come into the community. Grand Forks Public Health is looking at doing the first vaccination event for first responders, looking at next week.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, no question, but a comment, if I may.
Please.
Every death from COVID is a tragedy for that family and for the whole community. But if we go back to where we were at the end of October and leading up to Thanksgiving, the predictions that Mr. Dulitz was making, he wasn't wrong in making those predictions. Those were predictions if we failed to follow guidelines. And at that time, we were facing a very dire situation by the middle of December leading up to Christmas. But thanks to the courage and leadership of Dr. Walls, our public health officer, and his actions, which were quickly followed up by the governor, we've put mitigation efforts in place, and the people of Grand Forks have stepped up and helped one another, helped themselves, protecting one another and their neighbors, and law enforcement has been able to engage a campaign of education rather than having to serve as muscle for policy. So my thanks to the people of Grand Forks for their wise embracing of these personal responsibility measures, and just my urging that we continue to stay the course through Christmas. It was hard to do during Thanksgiving, and it's maybe going to be harder to do through Christmas, but if we can just keep these positive trends growing while we get to the point where more of us are vaccinated, we may be seeing that light at the end of the tunnel getting brighter and brighter. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Any other comments? All right. Thank you, Mr. Dulitz. We got Mr. Schill on deck.
We do. Mayor Buchanski, I think Councilmember Veen brought up tonight on the agenda, we have eliminating the fees for 21 for bars and restaurants. And I know it came up in the discussion of, are we looking at the other economic sector? So we asked Mr. Schill to come here from Praxis to kind of give us a kind of an overlay of the land, looking at what we've done for some of the market research we've done as part of the market capture, also looking at Google Analytics, and then also asked Mr. Schill if he could have some early insights on some of this congressional, I suppose, additional CARES funding that's coming, and where will that go to, and maybe hopefully that hits the mark here in Grand Forks. So with that, Mr. Schill, if you wouldn't mind beginning again, thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Phelan. Mayor Buchanski, members of council, and Mark Schill, Praxis Strategy Group, based here in Grand Forks. Please stop me if you can't see it on the screen. I see it on the screen. Looking good. Okay, so what we'll be looking at here is jobs data, because that is really the best source, or the only source we've got to cover the most recent trajectory of information. The other stuff lags too much. And so here we can see overall jobs. And here's the hit we took in the spring. Bounced back to about 52,000, 53,000 in July. But since then, it's been pretty flat. We're down a little bit. We're down about 3,000 jobs overall since prior pandemic. So if we compare that to the metro areas across 6 other states, about 30-some regions, Grand Forks is roughly in the middle. 5% overall loss. This line here is the 6-state average, so it's a little bit better overall than the average, but certainly there's other places that are looking a little bit better. Retail, the positivity that we've seen recently in retail has continued here. We've seen a pretty decent bounce back since this low point earlier in the year. And so we're up 300 jobs in Grand Forks compared to November of last year. All this data is through November of 2020, which came out a couple days ago. Hospitality, though, is not quite as positive. There was a rebound, but now maybe more concerning is it's gone down a little bit in the last 3 or 4 months to where hospitality and leisure is down about 1,000 jobs in the 2-county metro area, Grand Forks and Polk County overall. So that compares, again, a little bit better than other places. Statewide, it's 23-24%. Grand Forks, I think we had this chart last month, and we were maybe a little higher than we are now. So it's slipping a little bit, but still significant. If we look at just food service and drink establishments, bars, though, that's down 20%. So most places have taken a hit of 20% in jobs. That's roughly equivalent with the state average. And not every place has that data, so you can see the comparisons here. Bismarck and Fargo look a little bit better. So overall, here we're comparing Grand Forks to just across all these different industries. And you can see at the bottom here, by far, leisure and hospitality is the most impacted at 17%, knowing that restaurants and bars are at 20%. Whereas manufacturing is looking good, up 8%. There's local services like personal care, repair shops, laundry, things like that. Those are looking good. Retail is up. We're still down in transportation, utilities, finance is down a bit. But again, it's down here is where the concern is really in leisure and hospitality. Looking at some of this Google data, so here again, this is a data set Google has released to help us track local policymakers understand what's happening in the community. So this line, this horizontal line, is essentially what it looked like in a baseline in January. So at the bottom, we can see the decline in what they call retail and recreation, which includes restaurants. Especially, middle of October here, we saw the community start to not come out as much, right, and start to see this creeping down. Of note, we're seeing it come back up again the last few days. This is the latest through last Friday. On top here is the time compared to average staying home, and that's risen quite a bit. Again, at this time period here, mid to late October, it kicked up a bit. You see the impact there of Thanksgiving as well. This chart is the same. This is our retail and restaurants. Just the jagged line is the daily data, right? So over here you can see July 4th, way down. Here's Thanksgiving, way down. The day before Thanksgiving, a bunch of people went out, stocked up. And again, you can see, so it hops around a lot. I thought it was interesting over the summer, all these low days are Saturdays. So Saturdays in the summer were much lower than your average January Saturday in Grand Forks in terms of activity in retail and restaurants. So again, we're seeing that go up a little bit. This is workplaces, down 15-20%, relatively stable, relatively flat. Grocery and pharmacy has come up closer to average in the last few days. So here you see the run to pick up your turkeys. Here's Thanksgiving, where it's down, and then it's kind of come back up closer to average. Here we're looking at these four buckets again, just comparing a few urbanized counties across the region. And just the takeaway here is in the yellow is Grand Forks County. We're roughly in the middle, across the board. Here's our residential staying home. Fargo is actually people are staying home twice as often, twice as much, 24% increase. Grocery up a little bit towards the middle. Here's our retail, recreation towards the middle. And then workplaces, Grand Forks is actually seeing a lesser impact from that. Notably, the Twin Cities counties are way down, about 50% down in terms of, which makes sense in a larger metro area of people traveling to their workplace. So, we've seen a bit of a recovery, but it's leveled off, 5% loss. But overall, hospitality is clearly the most impacted. The food and beverage sector down 20% in terms of jobs. And then we saw the public respond with, even before some of the policies were enacted. So I think that's a takeaway too, is when the virus is high, it impacts business, right? Either way. And we are seeing that tick back up here in the last few days, according to the Google data. So if we think about, what does the future hold for the hospitality sector, it's, some of the one of the biggest negative is the transmission dynamics of this virus, right? Is what we know is it's these three things: how close you get to people, for how long you get to people, and how the confined space. And unfortunately, in restaurants, in bars, in large events, you end up with all three of these things. And that's why they've been outside. The impact's been much higher there, as opposed to, say, a large retail space, where you may not get any of these three. So, that really shows in the data. Here we're looking at 6 states, different sectors in some of this retail and restaurant hospitality. So on top, you see general stores like Target and Walmart are up 4% across this region. Food and beverage are up. Grocery is up. Building supply stores, Lowe's, Menards are up. Look at the bottom, bars are down 50% in terms of jobs, right, across these 6 states. Amusement and gambling, way down. Accommodation down 1/3. Arts and rec, down 34%. Full service, restaurants down 30%. So again, big difference. And so this impact of this virus and how it transmits, as we know, it's not so much surfaces. You don't need to wash your groceries. It's about sharing air, which occurs down here. And I think that's where, part of the reason we're seeing this outsized impact. Another potential negative for hospitality looking forward is this analysis that we did for market capture. The point here is this is similar data over here on the right side. These bars are visitor traffic to hotels, to malls, to sporting goods stores, to restaurants, and to drinking places. And what we've done is highlight when there was events. This line here is the KISS concert in the spring. So this is data from before the pandemic. You see all these spikes on days where there was events, and on the weekends. And so it really helped to show us the importance of these big events at the Alaris Center, the conferences, the youth sports tournaments. I point out that even on restaurants, this space right here is the best midweek. Tuesday, Wednesday was during the Crop Expo at the Alaris Center in whenever that was, March or February, right? And so even those kinds of events, we're seeing increased traffic to these businesses. And so that the longer term impact of COVID on this sector also impacts hospitality. Another one is just what, whether these longer term shifts remain more permanent. I think we will see continued decline in business travel, for instance. Some of this telework is going to remain somewhat persistent. Yes, offices will open back up, people will go back, but maybe not every day. And then maybe most importantly is the Canadian border, right? Our numbers look good, but I think that border won't open until the national numbers look good. And right now, they don't look good at all. And so that may persist for the foreseeable future, and that's another negative. However, I think there's a bunch of positives too, right? Is I think in general, locals will come back to restaurants, right? Humans are social beings, and when it is safe and when we can get back open and when we can control the virus, there should be a pretty strong rebound. Secondly, the primary sector economy, the economic development economy in Grand Forks is looking good overall. Here's the manufacturing curve, right? We've seen this before, but this is continued growth through the pandemic. That's a good sign. That's good for retailers. That's good for restaurants. That's good for bars. And so that broader economic environment remaining solid is a good thing for them. Secondly, there are some upsides to the impacts of the pandemic, right? More innovation in restaurants. A lot of the local operators have improved their point of sale systems, improved their online ordering. And I think, I've never seen a stronger messaging from the community about how important it is to support local, right? I think that'll persist to some degree, that we may see in the broader sense this return to local. I just went and polled nationally, this is retail, but how many closures there have been across these national retail chains in 2020. Now we know, a lot of these big corporations have done just fine during the pandemic, but others haven't. So the Walmart and Target and Costco and Sam's Club, they're doing well and they're crushing everyone, and so is Amazon. But a lot of these middling chains are shutting down and they're cutting space. And I think there's a question here about in the 2-year, 5-year time frame in retail and in restaurants. We saw Ruby Tuesdays, for instance, closing a ton of restaurants across the country. Will that leave an opening? Following this return to local shift in business, especially in communities the size of the Grand Forks region that may end up overlooked for some of these big chains if they do, grow again, or do they just stay small? And is there this shift? And will there be openings again and a potential? And I think there might be. We don't know what the future of retail really is. But there may be some potential here for return to local. So of course, there's pros and cons here. The negatives, the virus transmission, persistence in changes to demand on the Canadian border, the importance of events. Events, even with vaccinations being, if we get widespread vaccinations by summer, it may take another year for events to come back, right? That's going to continue to impact the hospitality sector. But on the positive side, right, is this return to local, the support of local, the economic development is continuing to be successful. And I think, this broader just trend that might happen, that there may be an opening going forward. Now, of course, these small businesses have to survive, and that's not guaranteed. But for those that do, they may be in a decent position. And then overall, we've seen today the potential passage of the stimulus bill, which does include a number of economic things. Another $284 billion for another round of PPP that is supposedly targeted towards, or at least the limits on it are more limiting larger businesses, so it should be targeting the smaller firms. There's a specific $15 billion in there for a Save Our Stages bill, which is targeting live event spaces and art spaces to try to keep them open through this pandemic. There's money in there for childcare, for broadband, for transportation, and all should have economic impact. They're reinstating the worker support for displaced workers of $300 a week. There's some in the cash payments as well. And so There are some targeted things. The aid to state and local governments has fallen short, and there's still a lot of talk about whether that may be coming in the future round. But I think certainly we needed a bar and restaurant bailout for months. And that has been forced, that issue has been pushed onto local governments, and they've had to respond. And we don't have, obviously, the resources that the federal government does. But I think these local policies make a ton of sense. You know, waiving the forgiveness of the liquor license fees, this new revolving loan program, the continued support, especially coming out of the pandemic. Ms. Richards mentioned the re-grant funds for events and arts. That's going to be even more important coming out of this pandemic, I think. And then just in general, the continued local investment and this continued strategy to double down on the successes and the developments and the projects that are happening and not let up the gas right now, because you know, there may be an opportunity for these smaller metro areas to build upon themselves and build from the ground up, I think, in the next 2 to 5 years as the dust settles with this pandemic. So with that, that concludes the content I've got for you, and then happy to hang around for any discussion.
Thank you, Mr. Schill. I think that highlights the importance of both looking at getting through this pandemic, but also looking to the future at the same time, and that's definitely a challenge. Any questions for Mr. Schill? Comments?
Mayor, just a quick question.
Yeah, Mr. Veen.
I was just going to say thanks to Mr. Phelan for getting that set up, and Mr. Schill for doing that. Very helpful for us to have good data to make good decisions. And so that's the kind of information that's just really, really helpful. So just want to say thanks to all of you for that.
Any other comments from Mr. Schill? All right, thank you, sir. We will move on to 3 public hearings and second readings of ordinances.
3.1, public hearing and second reading of an ordinance dedicating right-of-way on the plat of Kingsview A3 subdivision and final approval of plat located at 6,000 block of South 14th Street. No public comments received by the Finance Department.
All right, thank you. Anyone for public hearing? All right, seeing none. Questions, comments, motions? Mr. Sandy.
Move approval.
Approve. Second for Mr. Veen. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
3.2, public hearing and second reading of an ordinance to amend the zoning map of Southbrook POD Amendment Number 2, in Curran's Re-subdivision located in this 4600 block of South Washington Street. Again, no comments received by Finance.
All right, we'll open the public hearing. All right, hearing is closed. Any questions, comments, motions? Mr. Weigel motions. Was that Mr. Weber seconds? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. That motion carries. 3.3.
Public hearing and determination of protest relation to petition to vacate utility easement lying within Columbia Park 22nd Edition. No comments received.
That was a mouthful. Well done, Ms. Storstad. Any public comment? All right, comment is closed. Motion. Mr. Sandy moves to approval. Second from Ms. Mock. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. That motion carries. 4 action items. Let's see, I know we're going to pull 4.0, and on 4.7, we're going to just pull the library board section of that. I'll let the other 2 go through. We need to pull 4.8. And then on 4.10, I think we should just quickly pull the Health Department CARES funding, shine a little more light on that, if Ms. Swanson wanted to comment there. And then 4.16, Melanie had to change the staff report, I believe, and 4.19 it's in the ordinance as well. Is there any other council would like pulled? Mr. Veen? You good with that?
Yep.
All right, so on the consent agenda, we'll move 4.1, 4.2, 4.3, 4.4, 4.5, 4.6. The first 2 bullets of 4.7, 4.9, 4.10, less the Health Department CARES funding, 4.11, 4.12, 4.13, 4.14, 4.15, 4.17, and 4.18. Can I get a motion, please?
Move approval.
Got a motion from Mr. Kfami, second from Mr. Weigel. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. All right, those motions carry. Let's, Todd, you going to take 4.0?
I will. Mayor Buchensky and members.
Ms. Dorsey, you want to call it out first?
Oh, sorry.
Certainly will. So 4.0, North Valley Law Enforcement Memorial City Funding Contribution. Thanks, Todd.
All right, thank you, Maureen. This item came up a little bit late last week, and so I know Mayor Buchensky, you've worked on this, and I also know council members Kavami and Weigel have been working on this. And similar to, it's always great to see General Palmer here and seeing individuals in our community that raise funds to get things across the finish line, like the Veterans Memorial Park, which was the first of its kind in Grand Forks, perhaps sadly. And I think in this case, here's another memorial park that we do not have in our community, and that's moving forward with another private group. So there's a staff report there. I'm proposing that we would use $25,000 in our beautification funds as our contribution. We have done this before. Most recently, as I noted, with the Veterans Memorial Park, not only did we do that, we provided in-kind support with that project. We provided infrastructure support and some beautification. So with this one, it's just beautification at this point in time. And then, Mayor, I would hand it over to one or all three of you that have been working on this project day to day.
Thank you, Mr. Weigel, or Mr. Kavami, would you like to say anything?
I'll just be real brief. So Commissioner Bob Ross contacted me about sitting on this committee, and it was something that I enjoyed working on with Kyle and everybody else from the Park District and Bob and everybody in between. And I think it took on a whole new meaning after the events that happened on May 27th to Officer Cody Holte. And so I think this is an important project. I think $25,000 from the city to help move this project forward would be a great thing, and I look forward to the completion of it.
Thank you. Mr. Kavami?
I just want to echo Danny's comments. I started working on this project several years ago with Commissioner Ross. It's unfortunate timing that this is needed now more than ever, but we've received a lot of support from the private sector and excited to break down this spring.
All right, thank you. And I think it's good to note that, we always talk about where the city beautification funds go, and this is not going downtown. This is a city, outskirts of the city at Optimus Park, so I think it's great to spread some of that money throughout the entire boundaries of the city. So with that, I'd look for any other comments.
Move approval?
Approval for Mr. Sandy, second by Mr. Weigel. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. All right, that motion carries. 4.7.
4.7, specific to the library board.
All right. Well, I had to miss last week's committee meeting. I had a meeting with General Deptula. He was up from Washington. I guess I was a little disappointed to hear the recommendation from Ms. Dockler made. I didn't hear that recommendation prior, only after I had made my selections. I guess just briefly, after you win the election, the mayor has an authority and a duty to make certain board appointments, just as the city council president or the EDC does. So I think it should be no surprise and probably expected when a new mayor comes in that there will be some different appointments than the outgoing mayor, certainly in some areas. Without changing anything, I don't know that there'd be any point to change the mayor. This was a months-long process. It started November 14th. We had 9 applicants. We reviewed and ultimately ended up interviewing 8 of those on December 7th and December 8th, with my appointments coming on December 11th. This isn't really a negotiation per se. I think the city council is tasked with confirming or not confirming the appointments. I'm fully aware that there's another seat available in March, and I intend to fill that one with the same process. If I had concerns about the continuity or for that fact wanted to remain with the current continuity, I could have done what was recommended through my appointments. Ms. Schindler, Ms. Goodman, and Mr. Sherwood are highly capable and excited to get involved in the community. So I really hope we aren't souring this for them. I definitely appreciate feedback, any and all feedback, but at this point, I'd be looking to stay the course. So if there's any other questions or comments on that, I'd like to hear them now.
I do have a few remarks that I'd like to say.
Ms. Dockler, please.
So again, it's with the utmost respect that I think I first want to thank the former Library Board Vice President Katie Darling and board members Ted Sandberg and Fred Rimmer for their time and efforts that they committed to the library during their terms. And while I am new to the board, I have appreciated their professionalism and their willingness to engage throughout board meetings and in their support of the library. So I do see it as a profound loss for the library to not receive additional service in the form of a second term from Ms. Darling and Mr. Sandberg. But with that said, it's not my intent to make Mrs. Goodman, Mrs. Schindler, or Mr. Sherwood feel as though they're not welcome to the board. In fact, it saddens me, just as you mentioned, that we have volunteers who have stepped up to serve their community and now are kind of caught in this conversation that's not their fault or their responsibility. My reservations are regarding the process by which our new appointees were being installed, not about them as individuals or as candidates. I said this last week, and I truly believe it, that I have no doubt that they are fully capable and professional individuals who will serve the library as they have been put forth to do so. But going back to that process, it concerns me as appointments because I think that they should have been done in a manner that best serves the library and its governance. And yes, I understand that it is the mayor's prerogative to put forward appointees, as it is this council's duty to approve or deny their installments. But by replacing 3 positions on a 7-person board, of which 2 members are ineligible to serve in leadership positions, this decision has impacted the board's ability to govern. And a quick consultation or question would have shown light on this governing issue had collaboration been pursued from those currently doing the work, whether it was the library leadership staff, library board leadership, library board members, or Grand Forks County or city representation that currently serve on the library board. Perhaps the suggestion that I made at our council of the whole meeting to stagger new volunteer installments could have been discussed before former board members heard their services were no longer needed or new appointees informed. Certainly board members were communicated with earlier this fall about the likelihood of their appointments being reconsidered following the decision to adhere to the library's COVID-19 reopening plan that was established and approved by the board in March. Unfortunately, that conversation was never given an opportunity to happen before the former board members were told they were no longer going to be serving for a second term, and the new ones were told that they would be appointed. So it's a shame that such a collaborative compromise that could have provided continuity and stability for the board governance and also add fresh new ideas wasn't able to be explored through a siloed decision-making process. But with that said, I don't wish to drag this conversation on any longer, as it only serves to dissuade future volunteers from stepping forward to serve in these positions. I hope that this is a growth opportunity for us in how we work with existing boards that serve the city's interests when it comes to filling open spots. And I hope that we continue to strive for best practices in governance, regardless of whether it's a volunteer, elected, or appointed position, that we seek out and utilize expertise from those that are doing the work to help guide us in decision-making processes. So I will make a motion to approve Mrs. Goodman and Mrs. Schindler and Mr. Sherwood to the Grand Forks Library Board, and I welcome them as one newbie to another. And I welcome them to serve the greater Grand Forks community to their best.
Thank you. We have a motion. Do we have a second? Second from Ms. Mock. Any other comments? All right, hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. 4.7 carries for the library board. 4.8, we just need to pull, that's an introduction to the ordinance, so could I get a motion to introduce the ordinance? If you want to list it, Maureen?
Introduction and first reading of ordinance amending Grand Forks City Code Section 16-0310 and 0506 relating to obstruction of sidewalk.
Thank you. A motion from Mr. Sandy. Got a second from Ms. Mock. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. 4.8 carries. 4.10.
Okay, 4.10, the budget amendment specific to the Health Department and CARES funding, and the MOU is attached with Altru.
Mayor Buczynski, Ms. Swanson asked that I brief specifically the memorandum of understanding. Thank you, Mr. Gossett, for putting this together today, so we have attached this. The urgency of approving this funding request is the funding request would provide $618,275 for past expenses on the hotline for Altru, and then $326,135 for testing past expenses. And the reason why we want to do this at the end of the year, this is COVID CARES funding that needs to be expended by the end of the year. And so these funds have been, or this service has been provided, and so this MOU would basically allow Alter to be reimbursed for all their past expenses in these two areas. So that's kind of the highlight of it. Thanks for the entire team for working on this, and it all kind of came together because there were some additional funding the state still had available, so this was a really good place for them to reimburse Alter for them stepping up and providing the service. So with that, Mayor, I'd be available for any questions.
And I think too, it's important to note that part of the reason we were able to get this funding is that other cities had received funding for task forces and for other things that we were able to do and handle ourselves here in Grand Forks. So that was part of it, and certainly Alter being able to step up and handle the hotline and some of the testing, that didn't happen in other places either, and that allowed public health to be able to be really solid with data and contact tracing. And that's something that also didn't happen in other places. So I think this is a great recognition of what Alter had stepped up and did. And sometimes you got to put your money where your mouth is. And in this case, we get to put somebody else's money where our mouth is. So It worked out good on all fronts. So.
And Mayor Buczynski, there's a final $55,590. That'll go to public health to reimburse some of their 2020 expenses. So.
Oh, they snuck that one in there.
They did.
Huh?
So
Right.
anyways, thanks to Ms. Swanson and the entire team working together, and it all kind of came together at the end of the year.
All right, if anybody had any other comments on that?
Move approval.
All right, motion to approve for Mr. Weigel. I think I saw Mr. Weber nod. We'll give him the second.
Second, yes, please, thanks.
There we go. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. That motion carries. 4.16.
Wastewater treatment plant SCADA upgrades, city project number 8326. This has been updated for 12/21.
Ms. Parvey, please.
Good evening, Mayor Buczynski, members of the City Council. Tonight, I just wanted to bring before you a sole source purchase request with this project. The server that actually goes with the Wonderware software is more robust and redundant, has provided additional redundancy, so we're asking for that to be as part of the project. It is included in the budget that we had set aside for this project, so it's not an additional expense, so we can cover that this year as well.
Mayor,
Yes.
could I ask to be recused from this item?
Yeah,
I'll make that motion.
got a motion to recuse Ms. Mock from Mr. Weigel, second from Mr. Sandy. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign.
Move approval.
Ms. Mock is recused. Motion for approval by Mr. Sandy.
Just ask if Mr. Veen wanted to be recused as well.
Sure. That'd be great if I were added.
I'll make that motion. Second.
Let's, all right, we'll pretend we didn't hear Mr. Sandy's first motion here. So we have a motion, a second to recuse Mr. Veen. We're down to 5 now, so all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. So Mr. Veen's down, Mrs. Mock down. Anybody else not wanting to participate? All right, motion for Mr. Sandy, a second. We've got 4 members left. Who would like to second?
Second.
Second for Mr. Kwame. Any other comments or questions? All right, seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. That motion carries 5-0. 4.19.
Introduction and first reading of ordinance to dedicate right-of-way on the plat of Williamson Field and give preliminary approval for the plat located at 1100 block of Demers Avenue.
All right, motions, questions, comments? I think this one's already gone through the committee, just need to go there. We got a motion from Mr. Sandy.
Second.
Second from Mr. Kwame. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. 4.19 carries. 5, informational items.
5.1, statement of changes in cash balance as of November 30th.
Thank you.
And 5.2, portfolio management summary as of November 30th. And then finally, 5.3, Water Department emergency repairs over 10,000 information.
Thank you. 6, citizen comments. Do we have anybody that waited out today? All right, seeing none, citizen comments are closed. 7, approval of minutes and bills.
7.1, vendor list as presented.
We have a motion to approve the vendor list.
Yes.
Everyone's waiting for Dana to do it because he usually does. Let's, we got a motion from Mr. Weigel. We have a second from anybody on Zoom.
Second.
We have a second from Mr. Weber. Perfect. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed, same sign. All right, 7.1 carries, or those approved.
7.2, minutes from September 21st.
Got 'em. Mr. Sandy approves as is. Second from Ms. Mock. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. We have approval of the minutes. Mr. Phelan, number 8, city administrator comments. Looks like on this list here, you got 2 minutes. We won't put you on the clock, but hopefully you got something good for us.
I'll try to be substantive. Number one, as we noted, there'll be no committee of the whole meeting next week, Monday, and we'll move everything to the January 4th city council meeting. Also spoke with Council President Sandy today, and we are going to place, as you recall, the growth fund was amended to change the leadership of that. And from what I understand, talking with Council President Sandy, is that Councilmember Veen wanted some additional discussion and potential amendments on that. So we are going to place that on the city council agenda in January, the first meeting, so that we can have some further discussions on that. So I will do that. Also, thank you tonight for those 4 really extraordinary mixed-use developments that we approved, and when things go silently, that's usually a good sign, so thank you for that. Importantly, we'll be sending out letters tomorrow to all the local government taxing entities as per the state statute, and importantly, we'll be following up with their upcoming meetings in January to meet with the school board and the county commissioner, the most important, because we need their approvals, or at least their absence of doing anything. We will also, if they want to, meet with the park district. So just so you know, we'll be scheduling meetings with the county commission and at the school board on those meetings for your understanding. I'll give you those dates and when we're going to be there and all the particulars. So the work goes on. I want to thank you for this past year on behalf of the city employees and the city administration for all that the city council and what you have done, Mayor, for this really extraordinary past year, and with all the items that have gone through tonight and all the things that have happened this past year, services continued, things went relatively well, and we know there's going to be additional challenges in 21, but what was dealt with us in 2020 was quite extraordinary, and I'm proud of all the departments, proud of all the staff, and this is the time of the year where you do reviews of department heads, and you should be very proud of all the department heads that you do have and all their commitment to the city of Grand Forks and the employees that we have, whether they're in public safety, public health, public works, waterworks, city hall, across the board. You have really committed department heads and employees that deliver on a day-to-day basis. So with that, thank you and happy holidays, and thanks for all of that you do.
Thank you, Mr. Phelan. 9, mayor and city council member comments. Ms. Stockler?
No, not many comments other than just remember to wash your hands, wear a mask, try to physically distance, but stay socially near through the Christmas season, and hopefully we can push through. We just have to remember that it is a marathon and not a sprint.
Thank you. Mr. Weber?
Merry Christmas and happy holidays, everyone. Thanks.
Thank you. Mr. Veen?
Yes, same here. Merry Christmas, happy holidays to the mayor, to you, and all the city staff. Thank you much for all the work you've done.
Thank you. Mr. Weigel?
I'll echo the same thing, and hopefully city employees enjoy their extra 4 hours that they can spend with family and friends.
Vice President, no, we got Mr. Kalami. I skipped you, didn't I? Mr. Kalami?
Just excited for 2021, that's all.
Turn the page, I like it. All right, Council Vice President Mock.
I think Todd put it pretty well. Thank you so much to all of our staff for all of their efforts this year. Thanks to the community for stepping up, and it looks like our numbers are pretty good, so hopefully we will roll into 2021 successfully and healthfully.
All right, Council President Sandy.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Phelan, Mr. Mayor, I'd be interested in helping you with the county and the school district if there's an opportunity, and if you need a second or a third person. I think it's important to stress to those entities how important the developments are to our community. I also want to say that it has been an interesting year. With the elections, with the pandemic, personally for me, spending essentially months away from my family, it's really, to be honest with you, been miserable. And I'm really looking forward to what the future has to hold. So everybody have a very safe and happy holiday, and hopefully you spend time with those in your family that you are able to spend time with.
Thank you. I would just like to echo that. It's, this year's been a tough year, but I'm truly grateful for this community, the way this community rises up, helps each other out in tough times, comes together in good times and in tough times. It just shows you what a strong community we have. I'm grateful for the city staff and providing the services that they've had through all this. It's just an amazing job that we've been able to continue that. Certainly want to I'm grateful for city council as well, and we've had some excellent discussions, and I think we've moved things productively and in the way they should have gone. I think that's what a productive city council should do. Definitely grateful for first responders, grateful for healthcare workers. I did just get a text message from Lieutenant Governor Sanford. So there's a Christmas present came early for the bar and restaurant owners. It looks like Governor Burgum has lifted the early closing hours, so they will be able to go back to full hours with the same masking and capacity restraints. But I think they'll be happy to hear that. It gives them some more options with sports. So with that, thanks for the great year. Yeah, let's go to 10, adjournment. Motion to adjourn from Mr. Sandy. We have a second. Anybody else want to leave? We got a second from Ms. Mock. So with that, we are adjourned officially for 2020, unless we have a special meeting, which I hope we don't. So with that, we are adjourned.